Hello, good morning everyone. Glad that you're here. Just making sure all of our tech is set up. There we go, awesome. So happy Monday morning. My name is Lindsey and I am one of our signature artists with Wella Professional. So just want to welcome the entire Salon Republic family. I am super honored to be here. For the next hour or so, I'm going to be taking you through some express blonding services. I know that some of us maybe were quarantined, went into the salon, maybe we're back out of the salon and we're kind of playing that waiting game right now. So as we're playing that waiting game, it's a great time for you to get some inspiration, some education, and some ideas of really how we can bring some brightness into our client's hair and into their life, but doing it in a very, very simplified way. So today is all about keeping it simple, keeping it very realistic to hopefully what will be helpful to you behind the chair. So as we're going, know that, I will be doing a lot of hands-on hair. I have a couple of different looks to show you. So if you have questions throughout our time together, I encourage you to, please use the chat box. I will take some kind of pausing times in between to be able to look and hopefully answer questions that you may have. But if for any reason that I am not able to answer a question, if you have lingering questions about Wella Professional, I encourage you to stay connected with me. Again, my name is Lindsey Rice, but on Instagram, my handle is LindseyElizabeth_hair. And then you can also follow us at Wella Education, as well as see all of what's new at Wella Hair USA. So if you're an Instagrammer, which I have a feeling that probably a lot of you are, it's a great way for us to stay connected. So like I said, I'll do my best to answer questions as we go, but if I miss anything, please feel free to reach out. So let's go ahead and go through what our agenda for this morning is going to be. So like I said, we're going to be talking about express blonding services. You're going to get a little bit of a preview as to what is new with our newest part of the lightning portfolio called Wellaplex. We're going to talk through a couple of different looks that I put together for you. So one really focusing on more express foils, and I called that Fringe because we're going to be focusing more on that face framing or fringe area with foils. Again, this is all about express, quick services, minimal work, but maximum impact. Also going to work with some express or partial balayage, so whether you're a foiler or a freehand painter or a little bit of both, you'll be able to see both today. And then we'll talk through some glossing services that you may or may not know are available within Wella Professional and in our portfolio, but they're super quick, simple ways to create really amazing tonal changes in a very short amount of time. So that's what we're going to be going through this morning. So some of you may be asking yourselves, like, what would you consider an express blonding service, or how can you kind of put it into that category? This is kind of how I break it down in my brain. So when I think of express, what I'm looking at is time efficiency, right? Adding some dimension or adding some pops of brightness, but in a very quick amount of time, and making sure that we really are focusing on what is going to be the biggest bang for my buck and what is going to create that maximum impact. Less is more. This is something that was really, really challenging for me to embrace when I was behind the chair. If I was doing foils, I automatically thought I had to do a full head of foils. There had to be like 100 packets in there, and I had to make everybody completely solid blondes. That may be the case for some of your clients, but not the case for all of your clients. And I think what I've really learned over time through my experience is that the more that we leave dark, that those light pieces that we put in are going to look lighter. So really remember the importance of negative space and knowing that dark always makes light look lighter. So we'll kind of show that and talk a bit about that today. And then of course, simple add-on services. So I really think of these express services as almost like if you compare it to hair cutting, right? If you cut a really cool fringe or a really cool bang on somebody, that can completely change the look of their haircut with just that kind of front piece. So that's really what we're going to talk about today, is what is that kind of expressive piece throughout color in a service. And knowing that these things that I show you today, I encourage you to, take them for what they are and and know that you can use them on their own. You can also kind of add them into an additional service like gray coverage or things like that. So really think of these as kind of small bite-sized pieces of almost add-on services that you can do with blonding. All right. So as I go through my first look, I am going to be using one of the newer pieces of our lightning portfolio that you may or may not have seen or used yet, and that is called Wellaplex. So it is part of our lightener family. It is, very much in line with our classic True Blondor, which has been the #1 lightener for years and years and years. But the best thing about Wellaplex is that it has a bond builder built right into the powder lightener. So we also have Wellaplex, which is going to be the liquid system where you have #1 that you put into your color or lightener. You have that #2, which is going to be your bond reinforcer and pH balancer as that second step. And then you have your Wellaplex #3, which is going to be that take-home bond reinforcer. But with Wellaplex, the beauty of this is that it really, really makes it super simple to have a bond builder and a lightener together because it's already built in. So therefore you don't have to do any extra mixing. That bond builder is already built into the powder. So when you're using Wellaplex, you have 97% more resilient hair. And this is something that's always going to be super, super critical with our blonding clients, is making sure that our #1 focus is maintaining the integrity of our hair. And Wellaplex is going to be the best partner to be able to do that. You still get up to 7 levels of lift, and I found in my experience with Wellaplex that it's a really beautiful crystal clear lift with a true up to 7 levels. You can use it with any of our Wella developers, so with any of our Wellaplex developers, and those range from a 6 volume all the way up to a 40 volume. You could also use it with our Color Touch developers, which we offer a 6 volume and a 13 volume. So when I'm blonding, I tend to work low and slow, so I enjoy working with lower developers, like a 6, a 10, or a 13, but know that you can use Wellaplex with anything all the way up to a 40 volume. So the choice really is yours depending on your client's needs and of course your desired end result. And then just as we would if we were mixing Wellaplex into our classic Blondor, when we're using Wellaplex, it is a critical step that after the processing and after we've done our lightening service, the first thing that you want to do is rinse that lightener out and then apply the Wellaplex #2. So this is going to be, it almost feels like a cream conditioner, and this is going to be your bond reinforcer and also your pH balancer. So this is going to be a really critical step to ensure that you're getting that up to 97% more resilient hair. So just don't forget that this is always going to be your after step whenever you are using Wellaplex. So just wanted to give you a little bit of insight as to the new lightener that we're using today, but let's go ahead and get started with technique and get our hands in some hair. So the first technique that we're going to talk through is really focusing on the fringe. So we're going to do some express foil placement that's going to help to add some brightness and focus around the face. And I think a term that we hear a lot is that money piece, right? So how do we incorporate a bit of that boldness and that pop around the face, but in a very quick and simple way? So I'm going to kind of adjust my space. So yes, I'm coming to you from home today, so my quarters are a little bit tight, but we are making it work. All right. I'm actually gonna pop this guy out a little bit. Do that. All right. So as I'm getting my gloves on, I'm going to go ahead and go through the sectioning that I did for this. So I have an awesome cameraman. His name is Ted. And I'm going to have you, Ted, go ahead and come a little bit closer just so we can see the sectioning here. So you can see that off of this parting, I just took like a soft diagonal that comes about 1.5 inches from the front hairline, and then just comes into like this kind of soft triangle that comes right at the recession of the hairline. From that same point, I went ahead and just took a vertical line that goes all the way from that center parting to the top of the ear. So you get almost like this soft crescent shape that just follows the hairline essentially. So those are the two sections that I'm going to use. Getting my gloves on here for you guys. And again, hope you're all doing well. I know it's bright and early Monday morning. Hopefully you have your coffee and maybe a notebook to take some notes. All right. So I went ahead and pre-measured just to make this super easy and simple for us. So I am working with 50 grams of our new Wellaplex powder, and you can see it's a very, very soft granule there. And then I'm going to be adding in 100 grams of our 20 volume. And again, when you're working with Wellaplex, you can use anything as low as a 6 volume all the way up to a 40 volume. So it really is up to you. But my preferred ratio with Wellaplex is 1:2. So hence 50 grams of developer, or I'm sorry, 50 grams of powder and 100 grams of developer. Get that mixed up for us. And you can see that I'm using a whisk, but when I whisk, I make sure that the bottom of my whisk is literally touching the bottom of the bowl. So I think of this as almost like folding together as opposed to like whipping. When we start to whip, whether it's color or lightener, we can start to almost over aerate the product. So we really just want to make sure that this is nice and incorporated together, but is not overly aerated. All right, so nice, easy mixing. And you can see it's got a really kind of soft, almost fluffy consistency there. All right. So we got that all mixed together for us. Set that off to the side. All right. So, with our mannequin here, we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to start on this bottom area, so right at the front hairline at the top of the ear. And what I'm really trying to do is my goal is to have really, really strong almost ribbon or pop in this front hairline that's right towards the center parting, but I also want to have like a soft diffused connection into the lengths of the hair, right? If I were only to put some really strong foils here, it would look a little blocky or disconnected. So what I'm working on here is essentially that connection point that I'm going to have, okay? So I'm going to take a triangle section. And in this triangle section, I want to ensure that my triangle, the point is towards the front of the hairline, and then the wide side of the triangle is towards the back, okay? Now, you could do this in the opposite way if you want to, right? If I wanted to have a lot more kind of maybe brightness or like bold pops in this front hairline area, I could have the wider section facing the front, but I'm gonna do it a little bit softer and diffused. So wide triangles, I'm gonna go ahead and leave out, but the skinnier triangles towards the front, those I'm going to incorporate. And I'm going to do this entire section, but I'm going to do a back comb. And when I back comb, I like to actually start right at that bottom area and create almost like this one push cushion here, okay? And you can almost see in that cushion like these little S shapes, right? So when I do that and I just do it in kind of one nice sweep, if you will, that ensures that I'm getting kind of that maximum cushion, but also because I'm not going over and over and over and over with that back comb, it's gonna be very easy for me to take out when I'm at the shampoo bowl, okay? So I'm gonna have my foil here, and I really just wanna focus on this hair that we have left out, okay? Get my brush. And we are going to load quite a bit of product on this. I'm not necessarily wanting to add lightener into the back comb. I want to leave that cushion out. And I really want to focus just on these lengths of the hair. Okay. Nice, good saturation with your lightener, super important. I'm going to do a small fold here at the bottom. And the reason I do that is just to ensure that I don't have product on this lip. So that way, when I bring this up, I ensure that I'm not getting lightener into that little cushion there. Now this is a large section, so it tends to be quite heavy. So what I do to make sure that this doesn't fall or slip is I do one fold right on the corner, and then I fold that edge, right? So that almost little envelope fold there ensures and helps this from slipping. All right. So there we've got our first section. I'm gonna take the next one down. So I'm gonna do a diagonal, so it's almost like another triangle, but as you can see, the wide side, right, is at that front hairline, and I'm gonna drop that out. Okay, so I'm not going to do that. But then I'm going to take another triangle, and the skinny side is facing the hairline, so that's the one that I'm going to do. And again, what this is going to do is you're going to have a nice, soft, diffuse root, but you're going to have a connection point from these bold piece foils that we're going to do right after this. So again, nice back comb starting at the bottom to get that cushion pushed into the root. Okay. I know that I have, some friends that maybe use like a foil board, to kind of have that stiff underneath. You could even use like a specific teasing comb to tease if you prefer. It's all about personal preference. This is the way that works for me, but if you enjoy having like a foil board or more of a like teasing comb to work with, that is fine as well. No right or wrong here. It really is just more so personal preference. All right. And as you can see with the blonde Wellaplex, it's super, super creamy, so it's very, very easy to apply. And I also find that even in these large sections, because it's so creamy, it really, really works through and is able to saturate through. And again, I like to have that little insurance kind of fold at the bottom, so that way I know when I flip this guy up, we're not getting excess lightener at the top. So I'm going to do a little corner fold again, just to ensure that that is nice and locked and I don't have to worry about it. And we have that there. All right, so then my next section, so as we were working underneath, right, I left kind of triangles in between. Because we are getting closer to this kind of area that's going to be our main focal point, I'm going to go ahead and not leave hair out in between. I want a little bit of a bolder connection that's going to sit right next to where these are going to be back-to-back foils. Okay, so I'm going to do one more of these little back comb guys. There's that. And you can see there's going to be a lot of diffusion because of the amount of hair that's not back home. And that's good, that's what I want. I'll do this a little bit more feathered or kind of erratic because we are getting closer to what's going to be that brightest focal point. Now I'm choosing to do the side first, simply because of the natural fall of the hair. I find it easier. But if you wanted to do your back-to-back foils at the very, very front there first, that's fine too. Order of operation is completely up to you and what makes the most sense. All right. Get that guy there. Flip up. And then again, corner fold. And we'll do our side. Corner fold, and then we'll do our side. Okay, so we've got those three right there on the side, and I can see a little bit of drag here, and all I'm going to do is just feather that up. No worries. All right, so now let's move on to this front hairline. So I'm sure we've seen quite a bit in trend that we're seeing a lot of this almost like 90s hair color, or at least people are speaking to it that way, of just really, really bold, heavy face frames, kind of going back to those back-to-back slices that we loved so near and dear to our hearts in the year of about 1998. So we are going to do some back-to-back slices right on the hairline. I know that when I used to actually teach in a beauty school, and it was, you know, at a time where very, very soft blended woven highlights were the biggest trend, and so I just remember teaching, like, don't ever slice right at the hairline. Well, never say never, because you never know what's going to come back into trend. So, not leaving anything out, we're going straight to the hairline with this slice. And in this front hairline, we are going to do 4, count them, 4 back-to-back slices. So it sounds intense, it sounds like a lot of heavy, heavy lightning, which it is, but remember the goal is to have that really impactful, almost statement piece of a face frame. Feather that up softly. Now what I love about this placement is that because of the kind of combination of really intensive back-to-back foils with kind of this soft diffused like back combing around the edges of it, is that it creates boldness but in a very, very soft way. So if you want to shadow this root afterwards to get a little bit more of kind of a soft transition, you certainly can. But I'm going to show you, as you can probably already see on the opposite side that I'm working, is that I have a finished side. And the finished side I did not shadow the roots because I wanted to be able to show you this in its purest form. But of course, depending on your desired end result or client suitability, could you add a root shadow to this? Absolutely, totally up to you. All right, so we've got our 1 slice in. Got another one for you. Nice and close to that root area. Get some product on there. And the reason we're doing these back-to-back slices is to really ensure that we get maximum saturation. Notice my slices are quite thin, and that's to ensure that we get maximum saturation and maximum lift. If you were to take this whole thick section and try to lighten it together, first of all, you wouldn't get very tight to the root, but you also would probably compromise the lift because saturation would be very challenging. All right. So that's slice number 2. And of course, I'm going pretty slow and methodical just so you can really see and work through technique. But essentially, this could be a very, very quick 10 to 15 minutes of foils for your clients. Something else I want to kind of just call out as well is that I'm working on this kind of slight diagonal in this front hairline, and I'm just working this side. But if you were doing this whole front area on your client, depending on your client's shape of the hairline, if they have a pretty straight hairline, it's not super diagonal, you could essentially take both sides of this triangle and go straight up on both sides. And that way you're kind of knocking out both sides of that parting at one time. So to me, that's really dependent on the shape of the hairline, but just know that that could be a way to even speed this up even more. All right. So slice number 3. Get that in there. And again, really nice and thin. You want to be able to really saturate through. This is going to be your brightest piece. All right. And again, a slight feather here. A little product off my brush. There we go. I'm choosing to use a little bit of a larger brush. This is our kind of medium size with Wella, but size of brush, again, personal preference, totally up to you. I tend to use a smaller brush if I'm doing kind of finer details, or if I'm doing more like baby lights or super, super like micro fine weaves, where I feel like I might need a little bit more control. But for the amount of saturation that I'm wanting with what I'm doing right now, I find that medium brush is super helpful. All right. We'll get one more nice thick slice in here. So again, remember we're doing 4 back-to-back slices. So that's going to be our last one. And I find too, when you're doing these back-to-back slices, it's kind of nice once you've got a couple built up in there, because those foils underneath almost act as like a board on its own. So you've got kind of a stiffer platform underneath, if you will. All right. Got our good saturation. Fold. Back up here. All right, so we've got our 4 back-to-back slices. So next, what we're going to focus on is just that remaining hair that's kind of towards the top of that section. And this is going to be our connection piece now from essentially the rest of the hair into this face frame. So we're going to do a little bit more back combing. So you can see what I'm left with is almost this big triangle, okay? So I'm going to take a thicker slice, so straight across, but you can see it's almost about, I'll say like a 1/2 inch. So the reason I'm comfortable taking a thicker slice like that is because I'm going to back comb it. So I know some of this hair is going to go away into that cushion, so I feel like I will have control over being able to saturate those mid-lengths and ends. Go. Nice and tight there. There's that. And so that's all we're left with. And that's all right. This is going to essentially kind of drape over those back-to-back slices that we've done. Okay. Do a little bit of a feather, just so it's a little bit more of a erratic pattern towards the top. It doesn't have to be all the way to the top. I'm trying to count. Let's see. We did 3 foils on the side. We've got 4 in that front. So this is essentially our 8th foil. And then we'll got 1 more after this. Super quick, but again, we're really looking at high impact. All right. And then we've got 1 more. So essentially what you're left with is going to be like a little triangle. It's kind of a flat triangle there. Work our back comb in, and that'll be the last one. So really think of it as, you know, 4 clean back-to-back slices right at the hairline, and then everything that surrounds it is almost like this soft cushion that is going to veil through, but is also going to just give you that visual connection that we're typically looking for. And again, I'll have this be a little bit more erratic. Again, really nice creaminess of the texture of the Wellaplex, which I love. So we've got our simple, easy foil placement there. We would go ahead and let that process. And Wellaplex processes for up to 50 minutes. So 50. So we would go ahead and let this process. And then with Wellaplex, we would rinse. And before we shampoo, we want to make sure we use that Wellaplex number 2, right? That bond stabilizer and pH balancer. So rinse, Wellaplex number 2, that will sit for 10 minutes, rinse again, and then you would go ahead and shampoo, and you would proceed with your toner, your gloss, or maybe it doesn't need a toner at all, you would just shampoo and condition, right? Either way. So that is our placement, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come around and I'm going to show you end result. Comb this out a bit. Just got a little bit of like a beachy wave I put in there. And then this was, I went ahead and I did tone, and I used our Blondor toners, stroke 1/8 with pastel. And that stroke 1/8 is also referred to as pale platinum. So our 1/8 is an ash pearl blue. So you can see that it really did a great job at neutralizing any of those yellow tones. I'll go ahead and pull this back so you can see the hairline, right? So you can see that bright pop, right at the front. And then these kind of soft transitional pieces that work into these mid-lengths and ends. So that way you have a very, very visual kind of look here at the front, but you still have an element of connection, right? So that in itself could be a service. You could also incorporate, you know, some more foil work into maybe some of these mid-lengths and ends, or some painting, but I wanted to be able to keep it just really simple, really realistic. I'm going to come around you this way on the side. What I want you to see too is, again, I told you I did not shadow this root, right? So you can see that even without a root shadow, it still has a softness and a little bit of just a visual smudge because of that back combing that we surrounded it with. So this would be the kind of brightest form of it, but if you wanted to do a root shadow to have a little bit more of a blur there, you certainly could incorporate that as well. So hopefully you like that. Hopefully that makes sense and is super, super realistic. I'm going to go ahead and have Ted just do another close-up on the head sheets here, so that way you can see a bit of the placement as well as formulas used, if that is something that is helpful to you. All right, so doing a little switcheroo here, and we are going to move on to our next look, and that is going to be our halo, which is going to be focusing more on our balayage. So we're going to be focusing on partial balayage that is super, super subtle, very subtle brightness through essentially the face frame or the front of the hair, and then also through the perimeter lengths and ends, okay? So again, I've got some pre-mixed stuff here for us to make it super simple. And because we are going to be doing some balayage or freehand painting, I'm going to choose to work with Free Lights, which is our freehand painting lightener. Now, could you do balayage or freehand painting with Wellaplex? You absolutely could. Just know that you would want to use separators like a plastic cling wrap or potentially foils in between your painted sections. The beauty of Free Lights is that because it's a clay base and because of the technology, I can go ahead and do freehand painting without having to have any separators. So it keeps it super, super simple. So what I'm mixing in here is I have 50 grams of Free Lights powder. So you can see it looks a little bit different than our Wellaplex. And then I have 80 grams of our Free Lights 40 volume. And do note that Free Lights does have its own dedicated developer, and that developer actually has an acrylic polymer that helps to make it so that you don't have to have separators in between. So once that acrylic polymer meets with the clay-based powder, they fuse together and almost create like a porcelain feel. So that way when you apply it really nice and thick, the product almost has like a crust around it, but is still active on the inside. And so that way you can lay your sections down. and you don't have to worry about bruising or bleeding. So again, when I mix this together, I try to keep my whisk right at the bottom of the bowl so that I'm not whipping, I'm just kind of folding this together. Hopefully if I have any friends out there who watch Schitt's Creek, you're giggling about folding. Have that be a little funny haha. If you don't watch Schitt's Creek, I encourage you to. All right. So again, we've got our Free Lights powder and Free Lights 40 volume mixed together. There we go. So this is at about a 1 to 1.5 ratio, a little bit like 1 to 1.6, like if you want to get really weird and technical. So it's a little bit thicker than 1 to 1.5. But Free Lights you can mix anywhere from 1 to 1 to 1 to 3. So this is just my personal preference. I like it to be a little bit thicker, almost like buttercream frosting. Okay. And I do have a paddle. So I like to do freehand painting or balayage with a paddle, but again, personal preference. All right. So we've got that loaded and ready to go. So with our section here, all I'm going to be focusing on is essentially this 2 inches on a diagonal that just hugs the hairline and goes all the way to the back of the ear. Okay, so this is all I'm focusing on right now. So first thing that I'm going to do is I am going to add or do a piece here right behind the ear. I like having a little bit of this connection that kind of sits, or especially on longer hair, almost falls over the shoulder. And you can see that I took almost like a triangular or scooped section. Okay, so that ensures that, especially on this mannequin, she's got really, really wimpy ends here. So this ensures that I have enough density on my ends to have the impact of brightness. So that's why I take that scoop section. So as I start to apply, I want to make sure that I have really nice tension on this hair strand, and I'm just sweeping the surface, getting some nice thick product on there. So that's one thing that I find when I'm working with balayage is I want to ensure I have enough product on the surface. I'm just going to sweep. And I'm going to do just almost like a threaded one here, not like super heavy on one side. Make sure if I have anything creeping on underneath that I can get that off. And something that I always encourage people when they are using Free Lights is you really want to be able to see the white of the product on the hair. You don't want to see a lot of the hair kind of coming through. You really just want to see product. And then those mid-lengths and ends, I'm going to go ahead and saturate all the way through. Take my brush just to kind of catch any of those edges, and I'm going to lay it down very gently. So that'll be my first section. So then, come through, and I'm going to go ahead and divide this in half. Okay? So I'm just going to be working with almost 2 diagonal rows. So I'm going to set that off for now. So this row, I'm going to just take like soft diagonal subsections. Now this one I am not going to scoop just because of the placement of where it is on the hairline. If I scooped, I wouldn't have enough hair. So I'm just going to take this section as is. Hopefully you all are enjoying and maybe learning something new, or just kind of being re-inspired by things that you might already know or already do, and maybe seeing them done in a different order or a different way. All right. Some nice brightness there. And where I'm going to do a majority of my painting is going to be in this first section, so the one that is closest to the hairline. So I'm going to take another section here, this out of the way so everyone can see nice and easy. And this I do have quite a bit of hair, so I am going to scoop, so that way I do leave some negative space. and that will help just with the visual blend. Get some more product here. And when I'm painting and when I am working with free lights, what really determines, you know, if I'm going to use this kind of a technique or this product itself is what kind of lift am I looking to achieve? Am I wanting, you know, really, really intensive, severe contrast? If that's the case, then doing, you know, kind of a freehand open air balayage may not be the best choice. This is going to be the best choice if you're wanting kind of more subtle tone on tone dimension, or what I sometimes like to refer to as like a hyper natural dimension, which honestly is my favorite kind of hair. This is the hair color that I love to do all day long. Things that just look super, super natural, but maybe have a less natural looking tone. Things look very, almost like 3D because of the fact that you've got multi-dimension and tone that lives and sits so close together. All right, so I'm going to take my next section here. And then I will do another soft scoop, just to ensure I'm leaving a bit of negative space. Remember, dark always makes light look lighter, so you've got to leave a little something out. Right, nice, good tension. And now I'm going to start to have a little bit more of an angle when it comes to how I'm painting. So what I mean by that is that on this piece that's like closest to the hairline, I'm going to work all the way up to that hairline, but you can see I'm starting to leave some dark out behind it. And that's going to happen more and more as I work up the head shape. Okay? Down here slightly. There we go. All right. Now this section, because it is quite thin, as far as there's not a whole lot of density here, right? I'm not going to scoop this, but I still am going to focus on a little bit higher in my placement here, and then leaving a little bit of kind of this dark piece behind it. Brush load it up here for you. Nice, good tension. I'm going to set that down to make sure that we can all see. All right, so I'm going to have it nice and high towards the top or front of the hairline. Start to saturate these links and ends. And again, lots of product here. All right. Now for this last piece that's sitting right kind of at that center parting, you really want to get kind of maximum brightness, but again, really following that pattern of almost higher towards the center, and then you're leaving a little bit more depth kind of behind. Okay? I'm gonna stand here, see if that helps. All right. So nice and thick, kind of right up to that center parting. But leaving a little bit more of that negative space kind of right behind it. Okay. And again, I'm going to make some ends. All right. So we essentially just worked through, right, that whole kind of diagonal, that's that right at that front hairline. Now, with this kind of second row, if you will, all I'm going to really focus on is I'm going to take a nice wide piece here, okay? Because this is essentially going to kind of lay and veil over. Now, I want the highest peak of this to be right at that front hairline. So as I work through this piece here, I don't want to have a ton of painting sit super high towards the root. This is more so kind of that transitional overlay that will sit. Taking this whole section, starting a bit lower, and then almost just gently threading closer to the top. So you can see this is a little bit thinner saturation and a little bit finer. Like that. And then as I work towards these mid-lengths and ends, thicker saturation. So that way I still get that bright pop kind of through the bottom, but it's a gentler transition towards the top. So that one just kind of nice wide section. That next piece of that row that I took down, I gather that all together. Down here. There we go. And then all I'm going to do here is kind of a similar idea in that this is just going to be a bit of a transition. So I'm not looking for this to be super, super high or tight to the root. I'm really just going to be kind of dusting these mid-lengths and ends. So essentially, we had kind of that one little piece behind the ear. We had about 4 small pieces of painting right at the front hairline, and then 2 transitional pieces that sweep over. So very, very simple. So something like this, when you're working behind the chair, probably take you 5 or 10 minutes. This is something that you could add on to gray coverage. This is something that you could add like a root shadow to, or a gloss, right? So really thinking of this as like an add-on service, or just a quick little kind of pick-me-up, if you will. So that is that when it comes to the placement itself. On the other side here, you'll see finished results. I'm going to take this clip out so you can see. There we go. So you can see that all this really did was just add kind of that super, super hyper natural dimension. Looks very, very sun-kissed. Adds quite a bit of brightness, but it's not so much like a high contrast of brightness. It's very, very subtle. And I did do a toner over this. And I worked with Color Touch, and I actually worked with one of our newer Color Touch shades. So I'm going to have Ted, you can go ahead and close up kind of right on that head sheet there. So you can see the placement, but again, with formulas, I worked with Free Lights 40 volume. And then the overlay, or the toner, that I did with Color Touch is our new 9-stroke 7.5. So it's a level 7 warm brown with a little bit of red violet. So it has almost like this rosewood tone to it. And I did 30 grams of that, and then just added in 1 gram of the 0-stroke 5.6. So that's one of our special mixes, and that is a red violet violet. So it just kind of ups the ante on a little bit of that pinky tone. And then I did that 1 to 2 with our Color Touch 1.9%. So 1 to 2 would be 62 grams of that Color Touch 6 volume. I let that process for about 10 minutes and then rinsed it off. So that way you get that really nice kind of tone on tone, very, very soft dimension. So hopefully you like that and you enjoy that. I am loving the new Color Touch tones. I'm definitely a sucker for anything that has a rosy undertone to it. So that is our second look. And then the last thing that I want to talk to us about is the opportunity of glossing. and really just kind of what is that. So I'm going to do one more switcheroo here. Do a little side by side so we can see the power of glossing. Do that. All right. So, glossing. Very, very easy, quick way to finish any of your services. So with our glossing, this can be done with Illumina-Color or Colestone Perfect, either way. And this really just helps to enhance or adjust tone in truly just 5 to 10 minutes. So it's super, super simple. This can be done, like I said, with either of our permanent colors, so Illumina-Color or Colestone Perfect. And what you're doing is you're mixing 3 things together in the same bowl. So you're going to be mixing 1 part of Illumina or Colestone Perfect, whichever you're choosing. For the mannequin, I did Illumina-Color 9-stroke 60. Then you're going to do 1 part of our Pastel Developer 1.9%, which is a 6 volume. And then you're also going to add in 1 part of our Service Color Post Treatment. So that is our, essentially our color neutralizer. So you typically would use it after a color service to stop the oxidation of the product and to balance the pH. But in this glossing service, we're actually mixing them all together. So what I wanted to do was to at least be able to show you the consistency of the product. So here I have some Illumina-Color that is already in the bowl. And then I have our 1.9%. Again, I pre-measured this just to keep it super simple for us. So this is our Pastel Developer. And again, we're doing equal parts of all. So I did 30 grams of color. I have 30 grams of developer here. And then I also have 30 grams of our post color treatment. So you can see it's almost like a thick conditioner consistency. All of that good stuff out of there. There we go. So all 3 of those go in the same bowl, and then we'll go ahead and whisk those up. But this definitely does have a bit of a different consistency versus just a toner. It's a little bit thicker because of that color post treatment that we're adding in. So for me, I definitely prefer to mix this in like a bowl or brush just because it's thicker. But when I apply it to the hair, I typically apply it at the shampoo bowl. And you can do it either with like a very, very large brush or even working it in with your hands, just like a conditioner, because it's gonna go all over and make it a very, very simple and easy application. So all 3 of those things together in the bowl, it would go on shampoo, towel, dried hair, and again, processes for 5 to 10 minutes. So it's very quick, very simple. This is a great way to adjust tone. So let's say somebody comes in, their placement and everything looks good, but their ends have just become really brassy because of the sun or the environment or just fadage in general. This is a great way to refresh their tone. But know that in Illumina-Color or Colestone Perfect, this can be used with any level, any shade. So you can customize a gloss for any of your clients. So whether they're blonde, brunette, red, truly you can mix anything that your heart desires and be able to make that customized gloss. So it truly is the easiest, most simple add-on that you can have for sure. So again, this mannequin shows you the side-by-side. This is essentially how the mannequin came out of the box. So super, super yellow blonde. And then this is 5 minutes with a glossing service of Illumina-Color 9-stroke 60. So this is definitely one of the more intense shades in Illumina-Color, but just really wanted to be able to show you the power of 5 minutes with a glossing service can really, really change the entire look of everything all together. So hopefully that's helpful. And this is something that we at Wella have been doing for a very long time with glossing, but I think it's always just a good reminder of how simple these changes can be and these adjustments. So, brought you a lot of things this morning and this afternoon. So just want to do a little recap of everything that we chatted about. First thing is keep it simple. Okay, so to really have an intense impact on somebody's hair visually with color, it doesn't have to be 20 million foils all over the head. Really think about where do you want those main focal points to be, focus on those and approach them in a really, really simple manner. When we went through our look with the foils, right, it was about 8 foils on each side, and that was it. When we looked at our balayage, it was about 6, 7 pieces on each side. So something that could very, very easily take you 10 to 15 minutes to apply and can make a super, super high impact into your client's hair. And I think something to remember too is that for us as hairdressers, change usually has to be like extreme, right? For us to feel like we get change, it's from going from like a level 2 to a level 10. But with our clients, those super soft, subtle changes that can maybe make a difference in the glow of their eyes or their skin color can make a huge, huge difference and make them feel so much different. So keep it simple, less is more. Small changes can still equal big impact, so just really thinking smarter and not harder. Remember, we have our new Wellaplex, so hopefully that was good for you to see that in action and be able to see the consistency. So just remember that is our lightening powder that has the bond builder built right into it, and that's going to give you 97% more resilient hair. And then we did our express foils, right? So we did that fringe with that nice pop of face frame that was kind of cushioned and softened surrounding it. Then we did our halo, which was our partial balayage that really just focused on that kind of diagonal curve of the hairline and trying to get some pops around the face for more of a hyper natural feel. And then just remember that glossing services, 5 to 10 minutes, super quick, easy way to do a customized color gloss for someone and to add tons and tons of shine. So I didn't see many questions pop through, and that is okay. And I am not a tech goddess by any means, so I may be missing something, and that is fine. But if you had a super pertinent question, or you have any other questions about Wella in general, I just wanted to let you know where your resources are, right? And how we can get answers to those questions and questions that you may have in the future. So first of all, we have our Wella app. So our Wella app is 100% complimentary. You can download it on Apple or Android completely free. And literally any piece of literature we have ever made, tons and tons of videos, even a live chat, Ask the Expert is on there as well. So the Wella app is a great resource for you. And again, as far as Instagram, I highly encourage you to follow Wella Education. We do daily Instagram lives, whether it's cutting, color, styling, even kind of business education and support, almost every single day. So definitely check out Wella Education Instagram. We also offer virtual classrooms, which are essentially 2 to 3 hour Zoom meetings that are strictly product knowledge. So if you really are wanting to dive a bit deeper with someone live in product knowledge, I encourage you to go to wellaed.com/virtual classes, and that will help you get some more information of how to register to one of our free virtual classrooms. And if you want to connect with me personally, if you have questions, if you have comments, if you just want to say, hey, what's up? Again, my handle on Instagram is LindseyElizabeth_hair. So I hope that we are able to bring you some inspiration, some new things, some new ideas. It was a pleasure to be with you, the entire Salon Republic family this morning. Stay cool, it's super hot out here in California. I hope you're all staying well and safe, and we will see you soon. Take care, thank you.